day, fellow classmates, Professor Newman, and the rest of my wonderful audience whom I've invited to listen to my final class project, my persuasive speech on domestic violence. Today, I want to bring to light the sensitive and devastating effects of this subject called domestic violence. Domestic abuse, also known as spousal abuse, occurs when one person in an intimate relationship or marriage tries to dominate or control the other person. Domestic violence and abuse can happen to almost anyone, yet the problem is often overlooked, excused, or denied. This is especially true when the abuse is psychological rather than physical. Noticing and acknowledging the signs of an abusive relationship is the first step to ending it. No one should live in fear of the person they love. Domestic abuse most often escalates from threats, verbal abuse, eventually leads to violence. Thus, physical injury can occur, which is most obviously dangerous. On the other hand, emotional and psychological abuse, or rather, emotional and psychological consequences of domestic abuse, are also severe. Emotional abuse can destroy your self worth, lead to anxiety and depression. It causes feelings of helplessness and of being alone. Physical abuse is when physical force is used against someone in a way that causes bodily harm and endangers the life of that person. Sexual abuse is also another form of physical abuse. If you are forced to participate in unwanted, unsafe, or degrading sexual activity, that is considered sexual abuse. Forced sex, even by a spouse or intimate partner with whom you also have consensual sex, is an act of aggression and violence. In years gone by, this type of abuse in relationships was never considered as abuse or even as a crime. In some cases, the physical abuse may seem minor. A slap here, a slap there, a shove, a push. Regardless of how minor it may appear to you, it is still abuse. There isn't a better or worse form of physical abuse. You can be severely injured as a result. You can be killed in some instances. I've heard women say, oh, it only happened once or twice. Well, let me tell you this. Studies have indicated that if your spouse or partner have injured you just once, just one time, it is likely he or she will continue to physically assault you. Another important fact to know is that domestic violence is used for the sole purpose of control over your life. Abusers, they tend to use fear, they use guilt, they use shame, intimidation, dominance, threats, humiliation, and other ways to carry out their devious acts. Their main objective is to wear you down to the point where you feel helpless and you start to become passive. That's when they have you under their thumb or eating out of the palms of their hands, as the saying goes. Domestic violence and abuse does not discriminate. Anyone can become a victim. It occurs within all age ranges, ethnic backgrounds, and economic levels. And while women are most commonly victimized, men are also abused, especially verbally and emotionally, and sometimes even physically as well. A point to note is that in most cases, men do not report abuse because of their macho instincts or their ego. The bottom line is that abusive behavior is never acceptable, whether it's coming from a man, a woman, or teenager, or an older adult. Everyone deserves to feel valued, respected, and safe. Statistics have shown that the larger states, such as like Georgia, Florida, have more incidents of domestic violence than the smaller states. A point to take note of is that abusers pick and choose whom to abuse. The people they claim to love, that is. They also carefully choose when and where to abuse you, most obviously when no one else is around. They are able to stop their abusive behavior when it benefits them. Most of them are not out of control. They are able to immediately stop their abusive behavior when it's to their advantage, like when the police shows up. And most importantly, they direct their blows where it won't show. The cycle of violence and domestic abuse follows a pattern. It begins with the abuse, guilt, where she feels guilty and worries about the responsibility of being caught and facing the consequences. Then you have excuses that they made. They try to use these excuses to avoid responsibility for their acts. Then they behave normally. This is where they pretend that nothing has happened and they turn on the charm to keep you in the relationship. Then comes the dreadful fact or the dreadful part. They fantasize and they plan how and when to abuse you the next time around. Then they set you up and put their plan into action and create a situation where they can justify their actions. We need to, or you need to, recognize the warning signs of abuse. If someone has frequent injuries with excuses of, oh, I had an accident, they dress in clothing that is designed to hide bruises or scars. Like if someone is constantly wearing long sleeve during summer or sunglasses indoor, they're restricted from seeing their family and friends, becoming withdrawn, depressed, or even suicidal. All there are some, all these are signs of person being abused. Speaking up is a powerful and effective way of fighting back against your abuser. Silence is golden, but not in this situation. Speak up. Do not be silent. Seek help. Reach out to someone. No one should live in fear of the person they love. If you recognize yourself or someone else you know in this situation, just reach out to that person. There is help available. According to the late John Browley, human beings of all ages are at their happiest and able to enjoy, rather employ the talents to best advantage, their best advantage, when they are confident that standing behind them there are one or more trusted persons who will come to their rescue in times of difficulties. Yet for many, the trusted friend they took on as a partner, a wife, or a husband turns out to be a source of fear. Domestic violence can cause much distress and physical injury, and occasionally death. Don't let this happen to you. Do not allow yourself to become a victim. Do not let fear subject you to domestic violence. Be a victim, not a victor. Thank you for listening. Be safe.